day and welcome to FTM, the channel dedicated to Ferra data models. Well, today I want to show you a new addition to this table called fvmb, Ferra Value My Business simulation tool that we are publishing on the App Store, and I'm going to give you quite a comprehensive introduction to it. So let me open it. Let's create a new document, and what I'm going to do now is more or less captured in this template. So if you want to repeat this on your own or use it for another business, you can start with this model. But I'm going to start with a blank because I want to show you all the steps and calculations in between. Okay, so here we've got a blank document, and I'm going to start and insert a new node. The document is made up of nodes. They can be expanded and have child nodes, and the top node will be the sum of the child nodes if it's item nodes. Here I just have a formatting node, a section node, so let's give that an appropriate name, and let's just call it introduction. Okay, so if I collapse it and insert, I will insert a new node next to it. But if I expand it and insert, I will insert a new node as a subnode of that one, which is what I want to do here. Now the first node you want to insert after your formatting nodes is a date header. That defines the sample, sets the columns of the simulation, and here I want to use a quarterly model. I'm going to build a quarterly model that's going to start in, let's make it 2019 Q3. Okay, now let's see what this looks like. Okay, so there we go, 2019 Q3, Q4 and 1 2020. Now the default presentation is from the right to the left, as in your financial statements, but I want it to be the other way around. For this is more like a modeling time flow thing. And also I want another column, so let's add another column as well. And I'm going to start forecasting, let's say in 2019 Q4. So let us highlight that column. All of these columns are going to be forecasted, and then I want to put a line after this because this is 2019 Q4, and there we start with the new year 2020 Q1. So let's draw a little line there, and that's what we get. Okay, so I'm happy with that. So let's start adding some more. Now here I want, okay, what I'm going to model will be sales as volume times price. So let's start with the volume. So this is going to be my volume, and I'm also going to give it a variable name because I'm going to use this in calculations, and in order to do that I need to give it a variable name. So there I give it a variable name, and for now that is it. And let's say the last known volume was let's say 10,000. Okay, there we go. So I've got volume. Next I want price. So let's create this node and we call it price, and also I need this to be available when I do calculations, so let's give it a variable name. Okay, so let's say the last price here was, let's make it 120. Okay, so now I need another node, and that's going to be the sales figure. Okay, so let's call this one sales, and sales is going to be price times volume. So I'm going to enter a calculation here, and the calculation is simply going to be volume times price. Okay, so there, and I also want a variable name here. Let's call it sales. Okay, so here I've got a very simple model, but it's going to become complex pretty soon, and there you can see the calculation. These italicized values are the calculated values. Those bold ones are values that were entered. There's also another type of value which is data values, and that's what I'm going to do next. So let me add a new section here. This is going to be a, let's make it a subtitle, and this is going to be my economic driver variables. So let me put in my economic drivers here, and in here I'm going to have GDP and CPI. Those are going to be the drivers for this model. So let's start with GDP. Okay, and then also CPI. Now, of course, these ones won't be available to these items because this one is further down. So I need to move this up a bit. You can also drag it, but that is like herding cats. So I prefer to do it like this. Okay, so in this section, I'm going to load my economic drivers. Let's start with GDP. And GDP is going to be a data value. It's not a calculated value, but a data value. Data values you enter through this item. Okay, so what's the data? I'm going to enter a formula. So if you have something that takes a long time to calculate, also you can use the data section for that. So I want some data from Fred, and I want GDPC1. That's the code for quarterly GDP. Okay, so now that will download. Where did it go? Ah, there we go. So that will download GDP. Maybe what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add a line above this item just to separate this. Okay, CPI, let's do the same. Now, I showed you how to enter a formula for GDP, but CPI, wait, I'm in the calculation, but CPI, I'm going to use one of the predefined items. Now, this will show you all the predefined items. So if I click there, I get a whole list of predefined items, and this is going to be US CPI, monthly, not seasonally adjusted. That's what that means. Okay, so I don't need to know all the codes. There's a whole bunch of predefined codes available for me, and again, you get them when you click on the predefined list button. Okay, so now I've defined those, so let's download them. Let's download it. I'm going to hit the download button, and this is telling me that there are two downloadable items in this document, CPI and GDP. I can switch that one on or off if I want. I can edit it if I want, but for now I'm just going to download as is. So they are downloading, all are done. There you can see all the observations. CPI is monthly with a long history, GDP quarterly, and I'm going to load them. Okay, so there you see. Now, CPI is monthly, but here I'm showing quarterly values. So that is by default would be the average, but I could, for example, change it to be the default is the sum. I could, for example, change it to be the average or whatever I would want. Actually, that is if this is defined as the sum of a bunch of nodes. I can define how it would aggregate across nodes, and this will aggregate across frequencies. So from monthly to quarterly, for example, here I use sum. Now I want to use, for now it doesn't matter. Sum or average is going to give the same percentage, but I'm very interested in the percentage, and I want the percentage from one quarter to the next. So I'm going to change that. That was CPI. Let's also change GDP. In GDP, I want to see the percentage change from one quarter to the next. Okay, so there we go. So now I'm going to use these values, these percentage values, to simulate my volume and price. For price, I'm going to use those percentage values, and for volume, I'm going to use those percentage values. Okay. However, I also want to tweak those values. So for GDP, for example, I'm going to, now I expand and collapse that so that the next insert will happen here. So let's add a new item here, and this is going to be the GDP adjustment. Okay, or the add factor. Let's give it a variable name, and let's call it GDP add. Okay, so here, for example, I want to put in, for example, a 1 there, and then it must add 1% to that 0.6. So the 0.6 becomes 1.6, and then I want my volume to go by 1.6 in that quarter, for example. Okay, now so I'm going to enter a 1 there, and let's say the pandemic hit here, and it's going to be a -1, and here it hit very hard, and it's -2, for example. That's on top of the 0.9, and since these are percentages, I'm going to change the formatting, and I'm just going to post-fix that with a percentage sign. Okay, so now those are percentages, or formatted as percentages. I want to do the same with CPI. Okay, so let me duplicate this node, and I'm going to move it down one, and this is going to be the CPI adjustment. So let me change the variable name here, and this is going to be CPI add factor. Okay, so now my economic drivers are ready, my add factors are ready, and I can start simulating. So let's start with volume. Okay, so now I need to be careful. I need to enter the whole big formula to simulate that. So let's go. First of all, the driver here is going to be the percentage change, which is a P in GDP. Remember, GDP is defined as that variable. Oh, I didn't define that variable. I must define that variable. So let's leave this for now. Come back to that. It's probably going to give an error. There we go. Okay. So let me add a variable name here, and that's going to be GDP. Okay. There you go. Now you can see the simulation happens, and it's messed up at the moment, but I'll fix it soon. This needs to be CPI. Okay, so now my variables are defined. So let's continue with this formula. Okay, I'm starting off with the growth rate, which I store in X. I want to apply that X to volume. Okay, so let's start with the last date of volume. That's going to be my counter, that I, and that's going to start at the last date, and I'm going to simulate to the unavailable values of X. So let's say while that I is less than the last available date for GDP, we can continue simulate. Okay, now the first thing I'm going to do is to add 1 to I. Okay, so now I is equal to the first date where there's no value for volume, because it starts out at the last date, now it's at the first date subsequent to that. And here I want to now calculate the add factor. Now the add factor has got a lot of blanks in. Only here and there do I actually add something. So this could be missing. So what do we call it? GDP add. So if that value, GDP add, if that value is actually missing, use the other. Otherwise, use that value. Divide by 100, right? Because I've set it up so that I can enter 1, and that's actually 1% or 0.01. So I need to divide by 100. Okay. So now I've got my add factor, I've got my growth rate, and all I need to do is calculate the new volume. So the new volume here is going to be the previous volume, right, multiplied by 1 plus my add factor plus my growth rate. And the growth rate's a series, so I need to index that as well. Okay, so that's the growth rate in this specific quarter, the add factor in this specific quarter, and that I add to 1 and multiply it with the previous volume. So that's how I apply the growth rate, of course, and I'm done. And when that loop finishes, what I want to return here is just the volume that I just calculated. Okay, so there we go. Now it's telling me something was wrong. There's a bracket missing somewhere. Typical problem. So let's see, what did I miss? Oh, I see. So there I've got an opening bracket, but I didn't close it. So let's try again. There we go. Okay, so now there I'm simulating volumes, and let's add the percentage changes here just to be able to eyeball it. Okay, so let me, where's the accumulation? Okay, I want the percentage change. Okay, so there we go. There I get 1.6, which I expect. There I've got 0.6, add 1% to the add factor. That gives me a 1% increase from the previous quarter. There I've got 1.3 negative, and I subtract an additional 1, so I've got minus 2.3. Okay, so there's my volume, same there. I've got 9 and I subtract 2, so I get 11% quarter on quarter change. Okay, so now I'm going to do the same for price. In fact, I'm going to duplicate this one. And then I'm going to delete the price, and I will just do everything here. So I don't want a line, and the formula is going to be a little bit different. This is going to simulate from CPI, and it's going to use the last date of price here, and the last date of CPI over here, and this is going to be the CPI add factor, and the CPI add factor over here. Over here I'm going to have price instead of volume. Price instead of volume over here, and I'm almost done. One more here, I'm going to do price. Okay, there we go, we've got it. And oh, it's complaining, of course. That's volume. I should change this to price. So this is going to be price, and this is also going to be price. Okay, there we go. So now I'm also simulating price here, and my sales is just a product of those two. So let's add some percentage changes here to the accumulation, and there we go. Okay, so now I've got a model here that models sales. So sales is made up, let's just start here with 120, I believe I used initially. Volume is simulated through GDP and an add factor. The price is simulated through CPI and an add factor. And then sales is simply calculated as the product of those two. Now I can continue. I can add some expenses here, or cost of sales to simulate profits. But this is how you build models in this app, and this is how you simulate and download data. And well, that's it. That's what I want to show you today. Thank you. Goodbye.